The UK government will release papers on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's appointment as British trade envoy. Joining us live from the UK is News Corp's Europe correspondent and our Sky News contributor Sophie Elsworth. So what are the papers expected to reveal, Sophie?
Well, there's two batches of papers that are expected to be revealed, Pete. The first one being about the appointment of Lord Mandelson to the role as the UK's ambassador to the US. And then the second batch of papers relating to Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's appointment as trade envoy and how this came about. Now, there's reporting here in the UK, Pete, that Lord Mandelson was one of those who was pushing for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor to be put into that role. So this is a spider's web within Parliament of working out who was involved in the appointments of both men, both of who have been arrested by police and both who are under investigation as a result of their ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
How much heat will this put on Keir Starmer?
Pete, an enormous amount, because particularly with the Lord Mandelson appointment, because he was the one that put him in this plum role as the UK's ambassador to the US, when it was widely known, it was easy to find online, that he had maintained his connections with Jeffrey Epstein for a long period of time. This was not a secret. So this is definitely putting a lot of pressure on Keir Starmer. And this weekend there is a by-election here in the UK, which is critical for Labor. And there's elections coming up in Scotland and Wales in a couple of months. So the pressure is definitely on him.
How has he managed to stay in the role so far, Sophie?
Well, they calmed the waters a few weeks ago, Pete, because there was a push maybe to toss him out. But the word here among the British political journalists is that they couldn't find a suitable alternative. So they've decided to keep him there for now. And the expectation is see what happens at this by-election this weekend and in the upcoming elections in a couple of months. But I would say, Pete, Keir Starmer won't be in that role much longer.
Yeah, you would have thought that, yeah, particularly that's the expectation too as we get closer to those council elections, and then after that, which is not going to go well for the Labor Party. Yeah, he could well be in a bit of strife after that. Just back on Andrew, though, I mean, this was interesting, and it's worth pointing out too that Andrew and Mandelson have not been charged yet. But it's open season in the House of Commons overnight as MPs were highly critical of Andrew. So gone are the niceties that would usually involve royals now that Andrew isn't officially one.
Exactly right. So just in the last few hours here in daytime in London, the House of Commons was discussing him because they're saying that he's no longer a prince. It's often forbidden that they talk about members of the royal family in the House of Commons, but that doesn't really apply now because he's no longer a prince. Now, he was described, Pete, in the House of Commons as rude, arrogant and an entitled man. So it was a scathing review of him, and also a push to have these documents released in relation to how he got that position as trade envoy. So this is definitely ramping up here in the UK, Pete, and we are now waiting to see, as the world is watching, will Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and will Lord Mandelson, will they be charged with any offences? Because to date, neither of them have been charged and both have denied any wrongdoing in terms of their relations with Epstein.
So Australia and now New Zealand have called for Andrew to be axed from the royal line of succession. We covered this yesterday. It is largely symbolic because Andrew, let's face it, was never going to be king. But does Starmer have the appetite to do that, do you think?
Well, I think he does, Pete, because it's a distraction. All the media here yesterday, particularly, were talking about this, that he's going to possibly be removed from being eighth in line to the throne. Now, the chances of him becoming king are Buckley's. So really, many commentators here are also saying this is a complete and utter distraction and really a waste of time. But there is a push for Keir Starmer to do this to show that he is taking action. But, Pete, I think they've got bigger concerns on their hands of who appointed these men to these roles, how did it happen, because their relations with Epstein was widely known.
Yeah, so good point. That is the story right now, Sophie. Thanks so much. We'll chat to you again next week.